Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Tenpenny Files. I'm your host, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny. The Tenpenny Files has daily conversations meant to inform and educate, not just to entertain. I come prepared, and we let the discussion unfold naturally with people worth hearing on topics worth exploring. If it matters to your body, your freedom, or your future, we talk about it here on this show. Each day, we talk to authors, documentary filmmakers, and independent thinkers who work challenges mainstream messaging. We cover a wide range of topics, so there's something here for everyone. We talk about government, politics, history, astronomy, pets and travel, to food, farming and fitness, to vaccines, health, and health policy. And every week we have a conversation with an author or a pastor who writes about faith and biblical principles. My goal is to introduce you to topics you've never heard of or topics you wish you had more time to explore, but you really didn't know where to begin. Let our authors show you the way. So join me here daily, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Tenpenny Files, as we hear from voices that have often been ignored, silenced, or censored, but truly have something to say. But before we begin, I want to invite everyone to become a Tenpenny Prime member. Prime members receive exclusive monthly white paper, a recorded presentation, and our Ask the Expert monthly masterclass. Every month that we do this masterclass, I think it's the very best one that we've ever done until the next month. And we say the same thing again. You won't want to miss it. You'll want to be part of this. So go to primemembership.drtenpenny.com, primemembership.drtenpenny.com to learn more and hopefully join us and support our work. Now let's get started. Today's conversation is with internationally recognized keynote speaker and author on national security, intelligence, and strategic risk, Casey Fleming, about his book, The Red Tsunami, The Silent Storm Killing Your Freedom, describing the largest, most sinisterly orchestrated global assault on freedom in history. Good morning, Casey. Thanks so much for joining us here today. It is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You know, we started before we went live here on this show this morning. We talked a little bit offline about how I think this book is fantastic, and I've already written you an Amazon review, a 5-star one, and I've already referred this book to many of my friends. But you said that you really weren't a writer and never wanted to write a book. Tell us a little bit about how this book came into reality.
Well, through my work, and actually been doing this for almost 2 decades, the word was not getting out to the people that matter. There are very smart people that wrote books in and around the subject, military writing to military, government writing to government, which is their comfort zones. But nobody wrote the 360, and nobody wrote it to the most important people, which is every man, woman, and child, every mailbox. It wasn't getting done. So I'm like, oh, if nobody's going to do it, I've got to do it. And so that's what I did. I sat down to do the thing. I never wanted to write a book, still don't, but it's here.
Well, it's really well written. And you say, let's just cut to the chase about what the cornerstone of this book about. You say that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is, quote, diabolical, insidious, tech-enabled, relentless, existential threat. It is a radical, lethal, mafia-styled gang committed to eradicating freedom and Western sovereignty. Those are strong adjectives. What made you say that, and why do they hate us so much?
Because, well, I say it so strong because it is absolutely accurate. If you're at war, you must become intimate with your enemy. You must understand who they are, how they're wound up, and how they're working. Basically, it's counterintelligence, and that's what my firm does is counterintelligence. But they are the most lethal, the diabolical mafia regime. They have no respect for human life. We can go into all that detail. So they do hate us because we stand in their way of global domination. They believe that they ran this world for 2,300 years. The last century, 1850, which the Opium Wars, up until 1950, which was World War II when the Japanese came in and the Americans had to kick the Japanese out. That was the century of great humiliation. And so they say it's our destiny to run the world for the next 2,300 years. The reason they hate us, and they train their children to hate us and their teenagers, they chant every day about Americans being their enemy. They are certainly trained that, make no mistake. But the reason is because freedom renders communism null and void. It renders it moot. So freedom, you can't have a free society in China run by a totalitarian, a ruthless totalitarian regime if they have any freedom to speak against the regime, act against the regime, protest, or anything like that. So you are not allowed to have thoughts, personal thoughts of your own, only thoughts of the Chinese Communist Party. So, everybody talks about, well, let me back up one other thing. China there's only one China, and it's completely run and dominated by the Chinese Communist Party. So there are no two Chinas. There are a lot of people in China who want to be free and get away from the regime. But remember, they're in complete control, surveillance, domination, everything, all of your thoughts. There is no freedom, there is no free speech, and there is no free media. And you can't get programs like this in China unless you want to get killed. So we render by just our existence, anybody in the free world, we render communism obsolete and ineffective. And incidentally, communism, which is also Marxism and socialism for general purposes, has never been successful on planet Earth, ever. So they sell you this big bill of goods being utopia, and they never deliver it. They get you to come over, to vote them in with socialism and Marxism, but then the extreme hammer of communism, there's no voting. You do what we tell you to do, or we kill you. Back to you, Doctor.
Yeah, they really do have total control and total surveillance. You mentioned in passing in your book about Jan Jekielek's book about Killed to Order, and I had him on the show just a couple of weeks ago and read his book also about the organ harvesting industry and the Falun Gong, and now they're going after is it the Urix or something in the northeast corner of the country, and then they're coming after Christians next. And he describes, as you do, the heavy-handed, heavy hammer of what the CCC is all about. And you lay it out in your book that they have written a new playbook of unrestricted warfare based on Sun Tzu's principle of death by 1,000 cuts, and there are no rules and nothing is forbidden. And so you laid out in the first 25 pages of your book, which is just, for people, everybody listen, this is the best book about everything that's going on in current events. I know that a lot of you are listening. For those of you that are watching, you can see I've got the book all tabbed on the side because it is so good. And they lay out in the first 25 pages, your brain just gets a rattling because it's so important. And how that you say that that the red tsunami is horrifying, and how does what they've laid out differ from traditional warfare?
Well, two Chinese colonels came out with a book in 1999 by the name of Unrestricted War or Unrestricted Warfare. What that means is they figured out that they could not go head to head with the United States after watching Desert Storm and watching us in our military. They did not want to go up against them, and they couldn't. So they said, how else can we do this? So it's everything but military. So focus on every man, woman, and child to destroy from within. And it's under no rules. Even in World War II, we had the Geneva Convention. Here, there are no rules. Think about it. Fentanyl, COVID, all these things. And yes, we have absolute proof that all that is engineered bioweapons out of the virology lab in Wuhan. Incidentally, Wuhan is the illicit capital, world capital for illicit fentanyl. So there might be something there. So that's really what's going on behind the scenes. Let me give you a little bit of a subtitle. The FBI Director Christopher Wray, over the past 7 years, as well as Kash Patel, the new or recent FBI director, has stated numerous times, several times a year for the past 7 years, that this China and the CCP are the largest, most significant threat to the future of the United States. That's why I wrote the book. If you are at war with your enemy, then you must become intimate with your enemy. That's why I wrote the book. And because every American, and by the way, Canadian, Brit, Aussie, every free person is on the front lines of this war, they deserve to know. No one would write the book. No, I've got, and incidentally, as you read the book, Doctor, there are over 20 endorsements by the who's who of global intelligence leaders and experts, as well as subject matter experts. Over 20 of those endorsements in a book. My publisher said in 20 years they've never seen anything quite like that. So we're part of a network of over 400 intelligence experts around the globe, and apparently they made me the poster child to get this information out. So that's why I wrote the book. That's pulling it all together for you, and I'm open to your questions, Doctor.
You say that the red tsunami in your book, The Red Tsunami, that there are now more than 100 methods for waging war in unrestricted warfare, and that the U.S. has already had 950 out of 1,000 cuts. What does that really mean to our country and our society? And what do you think poses the most immediate danger to American national security?
Uh, Ignorance and lack of information and complacency. That's the biggest threat to our national security. When the American people wake up and they understand, here's the point: COVID happened, right? And when COVID happened, everybody said, okay, this isn't right. Something's really going on. There's a bigger picture here. Will somebody just stand up and tell me the truth? Nobody did. Nobody would. And will somebody tell me what the big picture is? Will somebody step up and tell me? Nobody did. Nobody would. That's why I wrote the book. That is really the background of really what's going on. And it is an existential threat. We're 950 cuts in because they've been doing it for over 40 years. And not only that, we've been helping them. Our major consulting companies, I won't name them directly, but the big four major consulting companies, some of them are actually, they've been in there for 40 years teaching them how to be better economists, how to run their economy, how to insulate against the US and the free world, how to build this machine against the US, and how to destroy it. And also how to teach them war methods and war strategies and so on. And now AI, they're in there with AI, helping them with all that information. So that should be banned. It's called foreign influence, all types of things. So we've created this monster. Your government has put you into this situation. Your military has looked the other way. They've been focused on conventional war because that's, God bless them, that's all they know. And they don't understand this whole new world of, it's not new anymore to the Chinese. They've been doing this since, well, since 1986, month number 3, which is their program 863. Basically, I'll paraphrase it: lie, cheat, and steal, and take over the United States and the rest of the world. That's program 863, which is 1986, month number 3. So that's the background of what's going on. Let me also give you another data point. The Chinese Communist Party has zero, actually less than zero, respect for human life. Okay. They've killed more of their own people than double all other communist regimes combined. Okay. And so they kill for human organ transplants, live human organ transplants. Another word for that is called murder. And they focus on Falun Gong because those people are they don't smoke, they don't drink, they exercise, and and all they do is meditate all day and pray all day. So they're fine human specimens if you're looking for organs. You've got and by the way, the number, Yanya Kay, like you mentioned, wrote a book that recently came out. He says the number's about 1 million. Our information says that it's about 3 million people that they've already done, but as far as killed for organs. And it's an industry. If you need a lung, a heart, or a kidney, just put in your order, fly over here, and we'll have you one in 2 or 3 days, at least by the end of the week. And incidentally, a lot of the elites in the CCP are actually fostering children. So when they get to be in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and they need an organ to live longer and to have permanent life, they believe they can live forever, that they've got their own DNA because they've got a 3-month-old or a 5-year-old that they're growing for organs when they need one. That is the thought. And so when we talk about what's going on with COVID, by the way, COVID-2, COVID-3, other very nefarious drone launched viruses, those kind of things. Fentanyl, they're killing 150,000 Americans every single year. That's like World War II never ended. And let me ask you a question. I'm asking the audience the question. Why aren't you seeing fentanyl all over the news all day long? Because it's killing 150,000 Americans. That's the equivalent of two 737s going down every single day. And if you remember, a few weeks ago, there was a regional jet, CRJ regional jet in DC that was hit by a Black Hawk helicopter. That was 1/3 the size of one 737. So it's the equivalent of 6 of those regional jets going down every single day. And that particular crash was in the news cycle for about 3 or 4 weeks. So if we're losing two 737s every day, why is that not in the news? And that's the point. Your mainstream media is giving you an alternate universe, an alternate propaganda that they want you to see. And that's another reason why I wrote the book. Somebody needed to connect the dots. We had the dots. I didn't want to do it. Just so you know, I fly at about Mach 5 at 100,000 feet. To write a book, doctor, it requires you to come down and ride a bicycle for a year. And it's a heck of a lot of work. So that's the reason I didn't want to write the book. But I ended up doing it because that was the only way I could connect the dots for everyone, get the message out. And the answer is America is a beautiful place. God gave us our freedom, and our freedom is guaranteed by the Constitution. And we tell Congress and the government what to do. Somewhere along the way in the last 20 plus years, it turned around on us. The government's been telling us what to do and taking a lot of our freedom away from us. So the plan is, here's what your enemy does not want to have happen. They don't want you to become educated or informed. Well, that's the book. And by the way, it's not a book. It's an expose and a survival guide. So it's not really a book. My publisher thinks it's a book, but it's not. So that's really the background on it. They don't want you to become informed. Then secondly, they don't want you to unite. And then they don't want you to take action because that renders them powerless. And that's the reason for the book. And actually, there's a movement next to the book that's in development right now. It's called freedomforever.global. And it's a membership movement where you go every day to get the truth on vaccines, the truth on climate, the truth on everything, and also who to vote for to get us out of this quagmire. One last point I'll make to you. We vote every 2 years for midterms. We vote every 4 for the big elections, but we vote all day, every day with our wallets. And we can stop all this nonsense pretty darn quickly by not buying Chinese goods and not buying from companies who are invested in China. Because let me tell you, China doesn't want to kill you. They are killing you. I just mentioned to you 150,000 a year. Again, it's like World War II never ended. And back then, I wasn't there. I know you might think I was still around or I was around during that period. But every newspaper, every paragraph talked about the war. Every news reel talked about the war. And we lost 150,000 soldiers every year. We're losing 150,000 of military-aged young men and women by design, efficiently by design every single year. And, it's not in mainstream media. Anytime you turn mainstream media, anytime you turn mainstream media on, you see that it's not there. That's just one example of how you're being played and how you're not getting the information and the data you need to run your family and your life and your future and your country. And that's the point. We are all compromised, and our mainstream media is absolutely compromised. Back to you, Doctor.
Roll that into current events of what's going on right now, because you said, like you said, the wars during, even during Gulf War. I mean, in 2003, everybody was glued to their television, like people, I assume, were glued to their radio during World War II. There's nothing being told about what's really going on in Iran. I mean, we're getting the real snippets of things from Instagram, of things that are being posted in on X. Um, Put the connection of what we're doing here. We talked a little bit about Venezuela and Greenland and Iran and how that feeds into the CCC's program to destroy America.
When you understand what's going on and you understand how the dots are connected, you can't unsee it. You now have the framework to understand what's been going on, what's happening now, and what happens in the future. You've got that framework, and the survival guide, not a book, gives it to you. So 90% of what you're seeing in the news is all part of this connect the dots and this overall strategy of unrestricted warfare. Minneapolis, those riots, their protests, riots, are all funded by the Chinese Communist Party. Neville Roy Singham, which is an American citizen living in China, who made all of his money from China. He's also very strong with Huawei, which is all based on stolen intellectual property from Northern Telecom out of Canada. Put that company out of business. So all of these things are connected. That's Minneapolis. And by the way, they're also funded. It was also funded through NGOs. They've done training in hotel ballrooms and in classrooms. To train these people. And by the way, some of them get $80,000 a year salaries, and some of them are living in hotels because they're coming from other cities. So that's Minneapolis. So the WEF and Greenland is also part of all this. Venezuela, certainly part of it. Venezuela was the CCP and Russia's forward operating base in the Western Hemisphere. And they received about 5% of their cheap oil to the Chinese regime that's still very energy thirsty. So that's Venezuela. And so it was the plant through Latin America and through the Western Hemisphere. Forward operating base. Same thing with Iran, forward operating base for China and Russia in the Middle East. So all these things are related. In fact, Iran is a major pillar and has been a major pillar in the Chinese Communist Party's expansion through the Middle East and the rest of the world. They provided about 20 to 22% of China's cheap oil. So those two countries combined, we just stuck it to China. Hello, there's a bigger picture here. We just stuck it to China and shut off about 25 to 27% of their cheap oil that they need for that machine. Now, China's also in trouble because their fake economy, it was overinvested in real estate, and so that all blew up. Their financial system, their banking and so on is blowing up. And now with this energy issue coming forward, now you're going to see more pressure coming on this Chinese regime, this very, very dark regime. And then you're going to have a thing called the cornered rat syndrome. So what do, right? So, when you have a cornered rat, you're seeing a cornered rat now in Iran because we've taken out the leadership. They're a cornered rat. Now they're targeting our embassies. They're targeting other countries. That's a cornered rat. They do radical things. And you can expect the same thing through the Chinese Communist Party, as we move forward through this thing. But Trump, to his credit, Trump has stood up to this when for the past 30 years, all we've done is grow this beast and made them more powerful by buying Chinese goods and services. Clinton welcomed them into the World Trade Organization. And it even started before that with Nixon and Kissinger by normalizing relations with the Chinese Communist Party. But if anybody remembers back in history class, communism and freedom don't mix. They never will. They're oil and water. And somehow along the way, our government and our leadership conveniently forgot that.
Wow. Well, one of the things that I said about your book, Casey, is The Red Tsunami is your book. And as I've spoken to other people about it, and just the first 25 pages is just jaw-dropping of all the things that you itemize that the CCP is either infiltrated or financed or initiated. And what I've said to people is you can't think of anything, any industry, any movement, anything that doesn't have the CCP behind it, which when you grasp that and you say at the beginning part of your book that even when you first started really digging into this, even at your level of high level in the government, it took you a while to really get your head around how awful and how intense it really was. So this is a must-read book, people. This is one you have to have on your shelf. And this is, I think, a good place for us to take a quick station break. So hold that thought, Casey. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors at AmericaOutloud.news. America Out Loud Radio plays the Tenpenny Files on the iHeartRadio network daily, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. You can also listen anywhere in the world by going to AmericaOutloud.news and logging into their media player. If you've missed any of these great conversations we've been having here on the Tenpenny Files, you can find them on Spotify, Pandora, Apple, TuneIn, iHeart Virtual Studio. If you go to those platforms and plug in the Tenpenny Files, you can also find them on my platforms, which is drtenpenny.com. You go to the podcast tab, and there's a drop-down window that says all podcasts. You can find them all right there. You can find them on my Substack, drtenpenny.substack.com. We also broadcast them or post them on X, Instagram, and Rumble at BusyDRT. Because there's so many really good books and great documentaries, and because we're so busy and so little time to read and watch, this show is meant to jumpstart your time and maximize your interest and lead you to places where you really have the right tools for further explanation. We have a great message coming from our sponsors. Sit tight. We'll be right back with more from Casey Fleming and his book, The Red Tsunami, The Silent Storm That's Killing Your Freedom. That is a workbook and has, in all this negative stuff on the beginning, we have solutions for you coming up at the end. Sit tight. We will be right back. Zeolite is a detox spray. We work specifically with a company called Touchstone Essentials. They are an incredible company. We've been working with them now for several years. And zeolite is a mineral that goes through your body like a one-way basket. It will clean out heavy metals such as arsenic and mercury, aluminum, cadmium, and it hooks onto those metals from a one-way perspective. So once it's bound, it goes out through your urine or your stools and doesn't get redeposited in other places. Everybody needs to have a detox product in their life, and this one is so easy to use and it's so safe. You can take it when you're pregnant, you can take it when you're nursing, you can give it to little children, you can even give it to infants, and quite frankly, I give it to my dog. I actually put a little bit of the zeolite in his water because until we all stop living in a toxic world, we all need to get some of those extra toxicities out, the heavy metals, the persistent organic pollutants, the things that are floating through the air, the different things that we come in touch with in our environment. And we are a big fan of zeolite from Touchstone Essentials. We've been a big fan of their products for several years. Go to drtenpenny.com/detox to get your first bottle of zeolite spray for $50 off.
Well, only when the government bows to the people will America become great again. This is Malcolm Out Loud here. Join me in pushing back against censorship, my fellow Americans. Right at the top of AmericaOutloud.news are the words: many voices, one freedom, united in the First Amendment. Now is our time, my fellow Americans. AmericaOutloud.news, liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Today, we're having our great conversation with Casey Fleming about his book, The Red Tsunami, The Silent Storm That's Killing Your Freedom. Let me tell you just a little bit more about our special guest here today. As Chief Executive Officer of BlackOps Partners Corporation, Mr. Fleming is at the forefront of evolving strategic risk affecting global leaders. His leadership has enabled organizations to proactively identify hidden risks and uncover new opportunities within their operations and supply networks. He has consulted with and offered pivotal counsel at all levels of government regarding strategic risk, counterintelligence, national security, including the White House. Mr. Fleming earned his bachelor's degree from Texas A&M and served as an instructor within IBM's internal MBA program. He continued his leadership acumen through the executive programs at Harvard Business School, the Wharton School, and IBM Executive Leadership. So we're talking about a brainiac here with lots of experience. So Casey, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
You say in your book, there is an entire chapter about religion. And you say specifically in your book that the CCP is anti-faith, anti-family, and anti-individual. Religion is outlawed or co-opted. Betrayal is rewarded. Betrayal is rewarded. Surveillance is everywhere, and freedom is destroyed. Is total submission their goal, or is it more like the elimination of humanity?
Both, absolutely both. But I think the biggest point to that chapter is that most people don't understand and don't know that communism is a religion. It is 100% a religion. And as such, you must worship the head of the state as God with a little g. So when you worship the head of state as the supreme God, that means that they are anti-Christ and anti-God. Well, what's another thing for anti-Christ and anti-God? It's Satan. And plain and very simple terms, that's exactly what this is. And so they represent Satan. They're the element of Satan because you must worship the head of the state. All other religions are banned. 5-6 years ago, they banned all Christian crosses, churches, Star of David, mosques, synagogues, all that stuff. And let me boil it down even further. If you believe in the real God and with the big G, then you've already made your choice. So our kids are coming up through high school, college, Gen Zs, and even Gen Xs, believing that socialism is a cool thing and it's much more equality and communism is wonderful. And they're being taught that in schools. They're being taught that on TikTok. I guarantee you. We can get into all that stuff later on or in another show. But you're in a war. And by the way, you're in a spiritual war. I connect the dots to you, but if you really want to go religious on this thing, you're in a spiritual war. There's no question about it. So that's the important thing to understand. When you buy Chinese products, you're buying products from Satan.
Wow.
And you want to know why they hate us? Because Satan hates us. And, I'm not a pastor. I'm a businessman. I'm an intelligence person, an intelligence executive. But we interview many pastors. They're quoted in the book. Survival Guide. And that's really what's behind this whole thing. So now, when your kid starts talking about socialism is great and they want a democratic socialist in the White House in 2028, the only word for democratic socialist is communism. All they did is reword the thing. It's communism, 100%. Mamdani in New York, communist. Democratic socialist was the way that they finessed themselves on the ballot and got people to vote for them. So our kids need to be educated. We need to stand up as parents and grandparents and get in their faces and tell them, these are the values I was raised on, and these are your values. And you're being played on TikTok and other social media to be anti-US and pro-China and anti-capitalism and pro-communism and so on. So that is what we're dealing with here. And it's no longer, you can't sit in the bleachers anymore. You're in the fight, whether you like it or not. You're in the fight. I would prefer to fight for myself as opposed to lay down. And that's another reason why I wrote the book. So it's for every man, woman, and child. It's for every mailbox in the US specifically, but also all other free world people. UK is much worse off than we are. Canada is much worse off than we are right now. And quite honestly, my colleagues say, please don't let this happen, man, because you're our only chance. And the old saying is true. If the United States sneezes, we get pneumonia. So they're looking at us to help save the world and their bacon. Yes, one more time. And the problem is, it's not about government. Don't expect your military to step in. This is not a military issue. In fact, the military is the Sun Tzu and the Chinese Communist Party want to win, and they are winning this war without firing a shot. They're doing a cognitive war through TikTok and social media and being taught in schools. That's cognitive war. They don't teach you they don't teach you what to think. They teach you how to think. Okay, so they take over your brain, not for a week. They take over your brain for the rest of your life. They kill your critical thinking. So you are just a guppy. You're a goldfish to receive propaganda and be told what to do. So all these things are very, very serious. And I hate to be the party crasher, but somebody has to step up. And in fact, like I said, I'll repeat myself. You're in this war. You don't have a choice. Another analogy is the fire's raging up the valley. Would you like to know about the fire coming up to take out your house and your family or not? And some people just want to stay, I still want to watch the Cowboys on TV and hand me another piece of pizza and get me a beer. And unfortunately, though, this is your World War II this time. And it comes around about every 70 or 80 years that you have a big war. It's on your plate. It's in your living room and your office, and it's time to step up.
I read a short article this morning about a woman who was a teacher. She wrote the article. It was she was a teacher at a Christian school, and she was talking about that that parents pay $15,000 a year to send their kids to a Christian school because they think that they're getting a Christian education, and all that they're getting is memorize a few verses and sing songs and know the biblical stories. They're not really understanding Christian apologetics, which is how to defend the faith and to be able to respond to questions. It's just have faith, have trust, believe in God just because we said so. And that she did some research and she found that 73% of her students, after they had graduated and gone on to college, had said, now we know how to think before we were told what to think. And they do this reconstructionist process of the Bible and religion and say it's just this mythical thing up in the sky. We don't have to believe any of that. And that I've had interviews with other people that have written a lot about the Department of Education and homeschooling issues, that we're not teaching our children how to defend the American Constitution, how to defend what they believe, how to defend their belief in the Bible, and that there is historical, archaeological, documented facts to support it. And it's all being deconstructed. And now, after reading your book and connecting the dots, like you said, you can see where the CCP has infiltrated all of that and done all of the, with all the math and all the crazy things, the DEI and everything, to just infiltrate the minds of kids, the transgender movement and all these things from, 3-year-olds on up. And so this is like a cognitive warfare that's really going on with the youth, which will grow up and be the leaders in our country, and they will already be bought into their system. How does this cognitive warfare turn Americans against one another? And often they don't even have any idea that it's going on.
Well, first of all, the one message I also want to communicate is that we're all being played together, left, right, and center. All Americans are being played. And the goal, which they're being very successful at, our enemies want us at each other's throats. Man against woman, father against son, daughter against, sister against brother, left against right, blacks against white. I mean, everything that boomers against zoomers. They're keeping us at each other's throats. So it breaks down our unity and it breaks down our cohesion. That's another reason why I wrote the book. It blows all that stuff up and it connects all the dots and shows you their strategy and how it works. So it's basically it's the old adage, divide and conquer, and that's exactly what they're doing. So there are over 100 different methods of unrestricted warfare to weaken your enemy from the inside, so it kills their ability and their will to fight. So you can win this war without taking a shot. One of the issues with the American people and other free world people is we've been trained to think that war is you're either in war or not. And if you're in war, your military is going to protect you. End of story. Well, the Chinese Communist Party redefined all that and said unrestricted war is everything but the military. So don't ever expect it to go to the military side. In fact, with the successes we've had recently with Venezuela, with the drug cartel. By the way, the drug cartel's part of this as well. Guess who the strategic partner is to the Mexican drug cartels? The Chinese Communist Party. Guess where they get their precursor chemicals and their chemicals shipped? They ship from Wuhan to the western coast of Mexico, southwestern coast called Michoacan, and then it's distributed through their highly efficient drug cartel networks. There's like 7 cartels right now. So they are, and they do money laundering between them, and they also do human trafficking between the Chinese Communist Party and the Mexican drug cartel. So all of these things are absolutely related, and we all have to be smarter because of that. So, yeah, there's a lot of detail here, but all of these things, the 100 different methods, you've got biological warfare, you've got drug warfare, cognitive warfare, economic warfare, education warfare, culture warfare, political warfare, religious warfare, spiritual warfare, telecommunications warfare, algorithmic warfare, basically anything that can be weaponized. And the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, has come out many times and said, we will weaponize everything against the West. And my background is technology, and that's why I kind of have a unique take on all this stuff. I'm not a government guy. I'm not a military guy. So that's why I've been gifted with the viewpoint to be able to pull all this stuff together. And when people said, Casey, you have to write the book, I'm like, not me. Why me? It's like, you're the only one who can write. I'm like, no. And I've resisted. But the point is, all of this comes together where we need to be much more informed. We need to be together. I don't care what I think you and I talked before we began this, that I've presented to left organizations many, many times and right organizations. And I've actually seen the left come up the curve and say, you know, this is preposterous. This is conspiracy theory. And then the next time I speak to them, it's like, tell us more. And then the next time I speak to them, it's like, Casey's my favorite speaker. You need to write a book. And the point is, they don't understand that, and they don't know what they've signed up for. And what they've signed up for is complete and utter control. If you like going to the baseball game, you won't be able to. If you like to eat this for dinner, you won't be able to. If you like to take a shower every night at this time, you're not going to be. We're talking about freedom. And when you're completely dictated, all your movements are tracked. All this technology, by the way, that they stole from or we helped them with AI, big data, cameras, all these things are either stolen from the US or we gave that to them. All that is being used to track their people. Incidentally, they were in Iran as a strategic partner in Iran. The Chinese Communist Party was helping them with surveillance and AI to track dissidents to go kill them. And so the Chinese, they've been a mass exodus leaving Iran. And so, yes, this is what's being done in China. You do what we tell you to do, or we put you in education, which is torture and confinement. And if you don't do what we tell you, or we kill your family. And if you're in the US and you're doing what we don't want you to do, we're going to kill your family back in China. So, or we're going to torture them. So this is when you buy that cute top from Temu, or you buy that nice gadget from Amazon that you just needed to have that's made in China, that's what you're funding. And not only that, you're funding your child's demise and the end of freedom every time you hit that click credit card with a product from China. Back to you, Doctor.
There seems to be complete political paralysis about the CCP. inside of our government and our legislative branch. And I've heard Trump say dozens of times in both his first presidency and now in the second one that Xi Jinping is a tough negotiator, but he's a friend. Does he really mean that? And if he does, what does that mean for America?
Uh, I would refrain from actually speaking my mind on that one, but he's not your friend. He is your mortal enemy that's killing your people, and he's killing 150,000 of your youth every year. Do you call that a friend, Mr. Trump? Do you call that a friend that's killing the minds of our kids with TikTok? If I was president, at 12:01 a.m., TikTok would be banned and replaced with a US app that is not controlled by big tech. It's controlled by a board of independents, and it's completely unbiased. So we can manage that freedom and to train our kids. By the way, kids on TikTok, I have to tell you this. Just even this week, kids on TikTok are now being told to be more Chinese. So you need to get up and drink tea, and you need to get up and you need to read this about China. You need to be more Chinese. And by the way, you need to be emancipated from your family and your parents because their values are so wrong. They are so dead. And you're part of a very dark world, which is called the United States and America and capitalism. And China is the only solution. And by the way, I'll tell you one other. A couple of weeks ago, there was a CCP operative on TikTok that basically said this, and we have the video. Okay, now listen, I want you guys to continue to organize in your groups, okay? And wait for the signal. Okay, and when the signal comes, we want you to go to those houses with American flags, and they will have the ammunition and the guns you need. And they will have the food you also need. So focus on those houses, but stay in your groups, continue to meet and plan. And this is what's being shown on TikTok. So why the president still allows that and why the parent still allows that is beyond me.
Well, Casey, we're coming down. We've got about 5 minutes left in the show, and I don't want to not talk to people about solutions. And here you've got in your book, you've got a section that says the lethal 45 communist goals to take over in America. And then a little bit later in the book, you've got the 20 basics for all Americans and allied citizens. And then you have a 60-day plan of what we as citizens, because when you look at this collectively and globally, it's like, if you had a loaded gun, where would you shoot? Because you need like 1,000 bullets to shoot all of it. So it becomes overwhelming and you feel like, what can I possibly do? So I want to give our listeners and our audience a couple of key steps that they can start right now to start taking back power with their children, with their families, and for our government.
Well, number one, and I'm not trying to be cheesy. I'm not selling books. Remember, I didn't want to write a book. Okay. But number one, your enemy does not want you to become informed. So get the book, get informed, get the book, get it in front of your family, your brothers, your sisters, your neighbors, even people on the other side of the aisle, and say, listen, I want you to read this. After you read it, I'd love to sit down. I'd love to get your thoughts. We need to start that conversation. We need to have the conversation with all of us. We are all in this together, left, right, and center, and we all share a common enemy. We have a lot more in common together than we do with our enemy who wants to kill us, who is killing us. So that's number one. Get the book. And then, by the way, I hate to ask you to do this. It's not for me. It's for God and country. Put a 5-star review in there. You want this book to be viral. So everybody gets informed. It's not for me, it's for God and country, and it's for you. So that's number one. Number 1A, stop buying Chinese goods and services. Look through your investments. Stop investing in companies who are doing business in China or who are spending a lot of money in China. They are your enemy. Number 2, fly that American flag in everybody's face in defiance. Put it on your backpack, your underwear, the front of your house. Put that American flag back out there like we did in World War II and we did in Vietnam. Don't let the enemy snuff out your American flag and that beautiful icon. That sends one hell of a message to your friends and neighbors and your colleagues in this fight. And it also sends a message to your enemies. I would love to see American flags on every house and every back window of every car and truck. Well, trucks don't have windows, but whatever. We'll talk about that later. But that is so number one, stop buying goods and services, fly the flag. And the other one is very important. It is stop foreign influence. China does not allow foreign influence. If you came in and tried to bribe someone or pay for somebody's campaign, you would be put to death. So stop foreign influence. By the way, a lot of our congressmen receive money in Chinese Communist Party money in their reelection PACs. The Chinese Communist Party calls that captured elites. The same thing with Wall Street. Companies that say, hey, we're doing business with China. China's giving us this, they're giving us that. Those are captured elites because they'll do what China says. The problem is the Americans don't have a voice anymore. And that's the reason I wrote the book. That's the reason there's a movement right next to the book that is, by the way, is still in development. All the focus has been on to getting the book out. Now it's to build out the movement so people have a place to go for community, for the truth, to go every day to see what's going on. And then stop. So the point is, you vote every day with your wallet against those Chinese companies and against those American or other companies that are funding this Chinese machine. Those are the most important things. Foreign influence is absolutely critical. We need to get people in office that will vote out and ban foreign influence. You know, all this land that's being sold to the Chinese Communist Party, farmland and land near our military bases, they don't allow anybody to buy land in China. Why do we allow them to buy anything here? They don't allow businesses to be purchased in China because they're all controlled by the CCP. Why do we allow the Chinese or the proxies of the Chinese to purchase real estate? And by the way, it's for weaponization. Think about it. Farmland where they can put in containers that are loaded with drones with ammunition, drones with ordnance, drones with viruses. You have to think like your enemy. And I'm sorry, but this is a sobering conversation, but this is exactly what's going on and what people need to think about.
Well, Casey, I was so looking forward to this conversation with you today because I was just so enamored by your book. So I want to tell everybody you can go to Amazon or you can go to our store, which is bookstore.drtenpenny.com, that has all the books in it from all of the guests that we have on the show. I'm going to close out today with just a quote that comes from your book that I think sort of tells it all. Where is it? Just give me a second. I wrote it down. It's so important. You quote Solzhenitsyn in 1978, warning, when a godless West loses its moral compass, they invite totalitarians to fill the void, which unfortunately has been happening. I wish we had another couple of hours to discuss this because it's so important, but our time is up for today. So I want to thank everybody who's joined us here today. And thank you, Casey, so much for sitting down on a bicycle and writing this book. It's amazing and it's important book for everyone to have. So I want to close out with one of my favorite verses from the Bible. I close all my podcasts with, whether they are live or pre-recorded, which is Romans 12:12. Rejoice in hope, be patient in trouble, and be persistent in prayer. Remember to lean into God, trust Him for everything. He will never let you down. And we'll see you here tomorrow or the next time at 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on AmericaOutloud.news, iHeartRadio, or all the other podcasts. We will see you tomorrow or the next time at the Tenpenny Files. Have a great day, rest of your day, everybody. Goodbye and God bless.